that hurts your offense. That puts you behind the chains, negative plays, puts you in bad positions on third downs where they can pin their ears back and come after you. So Florida, their best weapons are Etienne and Johnson. So get Trevor Etienne and get Montrell Johnson rolling early. I know you got new guys on that offensive line, 4 new starters this year. However, you get Kingsley Aguakon back at center, and I think that's really, really big for you, being able to, say, hey, we've got a guy who's experienced, a guy who knows what he's doing in the middle of that offense. It's able to help not only identify the mic in the run game, but help get protections right for Graham Mertz and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a big deal. But for Florida, it's important to be able to run the ball in 2 ways. First, it can help shorten this game. And that's something you definitely want to do and take advantage of with these new clock rules if you're Florida. Because if there's a perceived gap in maybe the roster or the talent or skill positions or whatever, then what better way than to shorten the game and lessen the opportunities that Tennessee has. And if Florida can run the football and get first downs, can move forward and keep those chains rolling, well, that clock's going to roll right along with it. And what does that do? That puts more pressure on Joe Milton in a hostile environment that every single possession, even with the tempo that Tennessee goes with, have limited possessions, and each possession becomes more pressure packed at that point. And, that's when that swamp crowd can make a little bit of a difference there in a tight ball game with limited possession. So I think running the football will help them do that. And also it just lessens the number of plays in general that Tennessee has a shot to get that tempo going and then try to hit those deep shots on you, help your defense out, the back of that defense out, by just being the best defense with your offense and keeping the chains moving. And it'll also help Graham Mertz and company get a play action passing game going. So it's imperative. I think against Utah, it was 10 carries for 31 yards between those two, Etienne and Johnson. They did not get the run game going over there, so they need to be able to do that against Tennessee. Easier said than done, because Tennessee right now has kind of been tackling the run on the way to the quarterback, man. They're getting after people with that front. So I'm excited to see if Florida will be able to run the football at home with Kingsley Aguakon coming back. So that is Florida. On the other side of that matchup, what I want to see out of the Tennessee Volunteers against Florida is, can the passing game get in sync in a hostile environment on the road? Okay. Joe Milton and company, they've rushed for more yards than they've passed this year. They didn't look good against, Austin Peay, whether it was Joe Milton missing throws early, and then when he would make a throw on target, the receivers would drop the ball. So it just they weren't in sync. Things weren't going well with that passing game. They also had problems with pass protection at times, and Joe was on the run a little bit. So I want to see, can they get in sync and, just get some of these new receivers who are taking over for guys like Cedric Tillman, taking over for guys like Jalen Hyde. I think people kind of thought, this is Josh Heupel's system. He just creates big plays, things like that. But there's been some key drops by Dante Thornton, by Ramel Keaton, by Squirrel White. Brew McCoy had a drop. So I don't think it's just as easy as plug and play. You got to realize those were 2 really, really good receivers. And Joe Milton now has to go on the road and follow up what was a dismal performance against an inferior opponent, now against an SEC opponent in a hostile environment. So I want to see, can that Tennessee pass game get explosive? They only have a couple of passes over 20 yards this year in terms of completion. So I'm excited to see how that Tennessee pass game goes. And then on defensive side of the ball, can they stop that Florida run game? Because Billy Napier and company are going to try to establish it early. Can they continue to stay elite against the run and stop that early? That's what I want to see out of Tennessee, those 2 things. So those are the 2 things in that key matchup between Tennessee and Florida. By the way, that is last time I saw it was a 6.5 point spread, I believe, in favor of Tennessee on the road. I like Florida to cover that. I came this close to picking Florida to win outright, but I think Tennessee will make enough plays and has just a little bit more depth. So I am going to go with Tennessee. Those are all in our predictions right here. If you're new to the channel here, like, subscribe, go ahead and hit that like button while you're in here. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications because we go live a lot. We have a live show every day. We have predictions and previews. We have betting tips with Brian Edwards, who's a Vegas expert for couple decades now. Jake Crane does his Jake's Takes with us on Fridays. That drops every Friday. So this is the place if you want SEC coverage, in-depth coverage. We do our homework, and we try to keep you guys informed on these matchups and see what you're thinking about them as well. So welcome in. We got the Ultimate Swan here. Appreciate you, coming in here with us and talking some SEC ball. Of course, my man Andy Stowe's in here. He's saying Joe Milton isn't accurate. So there you go. There's some of that. Trap Time is in here with us. We'll talk about Arkansas here in just a minute, man. I think that SEC West is absolutely wide open. So we'll get in there. But everybody, drop your questions in here in the chat, and we'll get to them here in just a minute. So that was Tennessee and Florida that we covered. Another SEC matchup, Georgia and South Carolina. So before we start talking about these guys, Andy Stowe's got a question. Do you think Dylan Bell should be moved to running back permanently for Georgia? Listen, they experimented with him out there a little bit against Ball State. He played running back in high school, some Wildcat quarterback stuff like that. He's over 200 pounds, probably 6'2", over 200 pounds, is a physical guy. Very, very quick. So Kirby Smart said, hey, that's definitely something they're going to keep in their repertoire there that they can pull out at different times, kind of in their bag of tricks. But it all depends on, okay, what's the health, how many receivers they have, what's the health at running back? Will they get another guy out there, healthy? Will Andrew Paul come around and be more healthy at running back? They get Daijun Edwards back this week. So I think you'll see more of Daijun than you will Dylan, but I think you may see Dylan a little bit out there. But let's get into the questions for this game that we have for each team. I'll start with the home team. Can Georgia play consistently for 4 quarters and block better in the run game? Both interior and on the perimeter has not been up to Georgia's standard. Tate Ratledge, the starting right guard for Georgia, he came out and said, hey, we haven't been physical enough. We haven't created enough movement. We haven't opened up enough holes for our running backs, and just have had too many busts, haven't been up to their standard. So also on the perimeter, you got guys like Oscar Delp and Arian Smith out there that are being asked to do more and more perimeter blocking now with Ladd McConkey out, with Darnell Washington now no longer on this team. It creates a void out there, guys who haven't been as experienced blocking out there on the perimeter, and they need to step up and have more consistency and execution in that as well. Listen, with Monken last year and for the last couple of years, Georgia would utilize the perimeter early and often in games, getting the defense going east and west. And then once they started doing that, they would gash them up the middle with the run game, with the play action over the middle, things of that nature. Get more in between the tackles then after they got that defense running side to side. At times, that has been there with Bobo and this offense in 2023, but they have to be able to block better in space consistently. I think that defense for Georgia, a question for them is, are they going to be able to tackle well early in space? Because Spencer Rattler does not have an offensive line in front of him, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute on our questions for South Carolina. He doesn't have a great offensive line in front of him, so they're going to try to get that ball out quick, whether it's quick game, screens, all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited to see, okay, can they tackle well early and then force Dow Loggins to be less patient? Because taking that short stuff, a lot of times it'll test the patience of an OC. You think, okay, well, we're getting 3 or 4 here, 4 or 5 here, but then everybody wants to start taking the deep shots. Well, guess what? It takes time for those to develop, and that's when that pressure can get to the quarterback. So can Georgia tackle early and force Dow Loggins' hand when it comes to throwing the ball down the field? Of course, Georgia is a 27.5-point favorite in this one over South Carolina. For South Carolina, does their offensive line show signs of life? Hey, Nathan Klein, we appreciate you coming in, man. South Carolina, does their offense show signs of life? They gave up 9 sacks and 16 tackles for a loss against a UNC defensive front that the next week turned around and didn't get 1 sack against Appalachian State. Not exactly an elite defensive front. Georgia's is an elite defensive front. They have a lot of depth, a lot of guys who have played a lot in college football playoff environment and national championships. And they are like a boa constrictor, okay? They're not necessarily with the penetrating style that Tennessee is, but they just cut down all the space, and before you know it, you can't breathe. That's the style of defense that Georgia has. But having said that, I know that Georgia's not a go get, a bunch of sacks type team. I don't think they may not help but get sacks if Spencer Rattler holds the ball for 3 seconds or more, because that's how bad this South Carolina offensive line has been. They've had key injuries. Jalen Nichols, the starting left guard in the spring, goes down, tears up his knee. Now they've got guys going in there. Case and Henry went down. They've had injuries there. Marquis Anderson is banged up. So it's been a kind of a crapshoot for South Carolina on the offensive line wise. I don't see how they're going to be able to protect Spencer Rattler. But at the very least, they got to be able to slow down this Georgia pass rush and also create some kind of semblance of a run game. Realize this: against North Carolina, South Carolina had -2 yards rushing on the day. I know that accounts for sacks, but -2 yards rushing, and South Carolina only had 108 yards rushing, and some of that came late against Furman. Overall, South Carolina is averaging a paltry 1.5 yards per carry on the season. Okay, 1.5 yards per carry. The Carrion Joyner, Juju McDowell, they're not getting it done. They played Mario Anderson and DJ Braswell a little bit later in that game against Furman. Did those guys step up and become RB1? Does that make a little bit of a difference? But still, if you can't get movement, you're not blocking people, you're not able to have that strain there. I don't know that happens very well for South Carolina. And then defensively, can South Carolina limit the explosive plays from Georgia? Because Georgia is going to push the ball down the field more now that it's a conference game. So I'm excited to see, okay, how does that matchup go? South Carolina feels pretty good about their secondary back there. They're getting Nick Amenwori back, but I think this Georgia wide receiving core is one of the more underrated in the country and very, very deep. And I think you're going to see the training wheels off of Carson Beck in this offense in this week. I'd like Georgia to win this one about 38-10. So I think they'll cover on this one. So because I just don't believe that South Carolina is going to be able to protect Spencer Rattler. All right, I got a couple of things here. Andy Stowe says UGA will actually blitz this week. They haven't been doing it yet. Rattler's going to get hard and get hit a lot. Hey, I could see it. Nathan Klein says, personally, I hope Rattler keeps up the good work. Didn't live up to the hype, but he's making a comeback of sorts. Listen, Spencer Rattler has been unbelievable. And I'm telling people, don't be shocked early in this game when he hits a couple of nice throws, because what they're going to do is, like I said, they're going to get the ball out quick. They got big receivers, so it doesn't take long to catch the snap, hitch up one time, and throw a fade down the sideline, aiming in about 20, 25 yards, and let a guy have a back shoulder or have a 50-50 ball. And then it'll be incumbent upon Dalen Everett, incumbent upon Kamari Lassiter, incumbent upon Nyland Green, Julio, they call him Julio Humphrey over there for Georgia, Julian Humphrey. Whichever one is in the game at corner, they're going to be tested. And, if South Carolina may hit a couple of those, but I don't think South Carolina can consistently move the ball, and that's why I don't think they'll have success in this matchup. So that is Georgia and South Carolina, guys, on the questions we have for both of them in that matchup. And we have one more SEC matchup before we get to the non-conference games and the rest of the schedule. We have LSU at Mississippi State. This spread has went up to about, I think, 9-10 points now. It opened up at about 7.5 with LSU being a road favorite. That's too rich for my blood. If I was a betting guy, I definitely wouldn't take LSU to cover that. Not that going into Starkville, and particularly the way that Woody Marks and Mississippi State has been able to run the football. So let's get into the questions here for this game. LSU, will the Tigers push the ball down the field, take shots, challenge that deep third with Jaden Daniels? Okay, Jaden Daniels has not done that a whole lot in his tenure there at LSU. Been overly cautious at times. The book on him was when he was at Arizona State. Too many turnovers. Let's not turn the ball over here in the SEC. Let's give ourselves a chance. Let's let our team stay in it. And I think he might have taken that to heart a little too much. They didn't really push the ball down the field or do a double move or anything like that with those talented receivers until they got way too behind the 8 ball in that Florida State game. They did not protect him worth a darn in that Florida State game. I was surprised because that offensive line they got everybody back. They got the 2 tackles that were freshmen last year back. So that should be a strength of this team, and it was not in that game. Grambling, it is what it is. I will say one thing with Grambling, they did get Logan Diggs, and Logan Diggs had a nice game for him on the ground. So if he establishes himself as the RB1 and gives them a running game with somebody other than Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels has been Mr. Everything in terms of the run game, extending plays, having to, make sure that he's trying to distribute the ball to those talented receivers. If they can alleviate the pressure there with getting some actual production out of the running back position on the ground, then that will be huge. And maybe that opens up some play action. Mike Denbrock can't really do a whole lot of play action because his most talented runner is Jaden Daniels. So, and that doesn't help out those talented wide receivers. So my thing is, will they push the ball down the field? Because when Mississippi State had trouble last week, it was when Delora, the quarterback for Arizona, threw some YOLO throws down the field and said, "Hey, let's go get it, boys. Let's see what happens." And the Arizona receivers came down with a coach, Jacob Cowing, a couple of those guys came down with the receptions, and that's what hurt Mississippi State, those chunk plays down the field. So can their secondary prevent that, and will LSU try to take advantage of that? So let's move on to Mississippi State. On the flip side of that matchup, will Zach Arnett coach aggressively? I thought it was one of the more interesting press conferences I've heard in a while, one of the more forthright and transparent press conferences I've heard from an SEC head coach. Maybe that's because he's a brand new SEC head coach, but he said, "Hey, we were up 14-0. Arizona was driving on us, a 19-play drive, and he said, hey, Mississippi State, we caused a fumble at our own 6-yard line, returned it past the 40 to the 41-yard line, so 35-yard return." And he gets on the headset and tells his offensive coordinator, Kevin Barbay, "Hey, be conservative here. Be real conservative and try to run some clock, run the ball, and give our defense a break." And he said if he had to do it all over again, he would absolutely do it over again, because that's a moment where you can step on a team's throat, especially when you have a quarterback like Will Rogers. Unshackle that man. He's seen every defense you can throw at him. Let him go out and try to get the ball to Tulu Griffin, get the ball to Creed Whittemore, get the ball to Justin Robinson, get the ball to these talented wide receivers, Jaden Wally. I mean, all these guys that Mississippi State has, let them go out and do the thing that they've done for 3 or 4 years, there under when Mike Leach was there, and be able to make plays down the field. Now, I will say this. I love the physicality and the angles that Kevin Barbay is creating in that pistol set, that much like he did at App State. I love the way Woody Marks is running the football, the way Davis and Pittman are running the football there at Mississippi State. I think that is what they're going to need. They're going to need to have an efficient run game to slow down that LSU front seven. They're going to get Mason Smith back. So, it's a deal where they're going to have to be efficient. They're going to have to provide Will Rogers with a little bit of that run game to make sure that, hey, they're not able to, Harold Perkins and company aren't able to just pin their ears back and come after him. But I think they can go right at him and punch him right in the teeth, because what I saw Woody Marks and the way that he runs, he brings the noise, son, when he runs. I'm telling you, this guy runs hard. He's been starving for carries in the air raid, and he's making up for lost time. I'm telling you, I was loving the way that Woody Marks is running the football, leading the SEC in rushing right now, I believe. So excited to see how Mississippi State comes out. But will Zach Arnett coach aggressively? I think he learned a lesson this past week. Let's get to the chat here for just a second. Noble Villain says, how long could Arkansas go if they blow the BYU game? If they somehow how low could they go? I mean, how low? It's a non-conference game. It still doesn't take them out of anything in the conference play, but that would definitely be a blow to, Sam Pittman and the momentum that they have there at Arkansas. So I just think that would be a shot to the gut, a punch to the gut for the program, for what Sam Pittman has built. I think they'll take care of business against BYU, even though they didn't look good against Kent State. Trap Time earlier, go back to his question. He said, hey, do you think Arkansas has a shot to win the West? I think the West is absolutely wide open. I think Arkansas could get hot. I think Texas A&M could get hot. Alabama is still, even though they lost to Texas, they're still Alabama with all that talent over there. And, I think I just trust Nick Saban to try to get things right. And then, of course, LSU is super talented. Ole Miss is playing great. I like what Mississippi State is doing. Like I just said they're Auburn has a defense that's playing really good. Can they get good quarterback play going? I think the SEC West is absolutely wide open. So I'm excited to see that. He says definitely a downer if they lose to BYU, especially with a stretch of games coming after. Yeah, hey, it's 3 tough ones in a row coming, so they need to take advantage of this. Start off 3-0 and get rolling. Alex Page, listen, Alex has been a good loyal follower of my content throughout not just this channel but other channels, and he says thoughts on your boy The Truth so far. Devin Leary, who I said coming in the season is The Truth, because I thought hey, he's been really, really good in his career, even at NC State, did some really good things. They have struggled as a whole. They just have not started fast. He picks it up later in games and starts to get hot. He's got to start getting hot early. Liam Cohen went to the hospital with some kind of medical episode this past week. He's out now. They said he'll be at Kroger Field Saturday. So that's imperative, and that's what we're going to get to with Kentucky here in a minute. So that's what we call a segue in the business here. So let's go ahead and touch on that with Kentucky since Alex brought it up. My question for Kentucky is, can the Cats start fast against a bad football team? Okay, they've played 2 not very good. Now EKU, has a guy who's like the FCS, version of the Heisman or whatever, or D2, whatever level they are at EKU. I don't even know. They shouldn't have been in that close a game with Kentucky. I'll tell you that much. So Devin Leary, missed some throws in that game, but also had some drops from his receivers, a talented group of receivers. Dane Key, Tavion Robinson, Barry Brown had some drops in that game. So much like Tennessee, it was like when Leary was good, the receivers were bad. When the receivers were good, Leary was bad. So I don't know. I think I am happy with, how Ray Davis has helped out that run game. I think they're going to do well there, do good things in the run game. But I just want to see Kentucky start out fast. Can they put together a game plan? When Kentucky was really good in 2021 offensively, Liam Cohen had that kind of Sean McVay vibe going where they'd get that wide zone. They'd get some of those things out on the perimeter. Kentucky's averaging 5 yards a carry. Pound that rock. Give Ray Davis an opportunity to work a lather up and then start getting some play action going for the quarterback, things of that nature. Some easy access throws, get the ball in the hands of your playmakers like Barry Brown, like Tavion Robinson, get Dane Key some shots down the field, and then pony up and let them go. So I think Kentucky's just got to find their stride here. I still believe in the Cats and believe they can be a good team. Ultimate 7 says, hey, Kentucky football and Kentucky basketball playing poorly versus bad teams. That's the thing. Listen, it's oddly enough, Kentucky seems to be like a micro version or like a poor man's Georgia in a certain thing. They're a couple years behind Georgia in some of these trends, trying to become more explosive offensively, playing really, really good defense, things of that nature. And it was a couple years ago, Georgia, they would play down to all the bad competition they had. They've kind of reverted to that in these first couple of games here this year. They've played down to Ball State. They've played down to UT Martin a little bit. Haven't been very crisp. So I want to see Kentucky start fast, and that's my question for the Cats. Now let's get to Arkansas. Okay, the Razorbacks. After a just mind-boggling bad performance against a Kent State team that allowed over 730 yards of offense to the UCF Golden Knights, Arkansas just didn't have a great day. 28-6 victory, I believe, and it could have been closer to that. One of them was a pick 6 that they scored their points on from Antonio Greer there, the transfer from USF. Who's going to step up with Rocket Sanders out? Okay, Rocket's not going to be playing this game, still dealing with that knee swelling a little bit. They're going to try to get him right for conference play. KJ Jefferson made some throws. Yeah, he made some bad throws. He missed a few in that game. But my goodness, some of the throws that he made to Isaac Tesla were elite ball placement. I mean, KJ Jefferson put it where only in the middle of two defenders, underneath the defender, sliding to the ground. Isaac Tesla. Somebody said Isaac Tesla's got hands of glue, and I kind of concur with him. That man has stickies, and he is absolutely catching everything thrown his way. KJ Jefferson's got to get a little bit of help in the run game. AJ Green and company at certain points. I think him and DeBinion might have missed a few holes that Arkansas did have when they opened them up. And then at sometimes Arkansas wasn't providing enough movement. I know some of the receivers definitely weren't getting the separation they needed to at times against a Kent State team that gave up over 340 passing yards to UCF. They should have been running a wide booty open down the field, and they absolutely weren't. So I want to see Arkansas get more separation against the BYU team, and that offensive line be more physical and get it to where you don't have to run KJ Jefferson and put his body in danger all the time if you're Arkansas. Jefferson is a beast, William Wigginton says. AJ Green has looked promising to me at times. No doubt, he's looked good, but there was a cut. You go back and look at the end zone copy of that game. I was watching the tape, and boy, there was a couple times where Latham and Limmer, they opened up some holes, and Green just didn't see them. And same thing with a couple of the other backs there. But at other times, I looked at that. I rewatched that game. Kent State had 8 men in the box and said, throw it on us. We dare you. We dare you to throw it on us. And that is where Dan Enos has to say, all right, we're going to take some shots. We're going to make them respect our passing game here. All right. So let's talk a little bit about another SEC West team that is playing a out-of-conference game against a opponent they should beat, and that is Auburn. Auburn went out on the road against Cal, and I'm telling you, people might say, oh, they only beat Cal 14-10. That's going to be a victory that I think you can look back on at the end of this season and maybe even next year and say, hey, that was a big deal for Auburn football, because that is a tough road trip to go all the way across the country to play at 9:30 Eastern time or 8:30, Central time after all that travel, all that kind of stuff. And they played particularly poorly, turned the ball over 4 or 5 times in that game, a few fumbles, an interception, and yet still had the intestinal fortitude to reach down and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And Peyton Thorne was good when he needed to be and hit Rivaldo Fairweather for a touchdown late in that game. I couldn't be more impressed with just the change in the mindset of Auburn. I think Hugh Freeze has done wonders already, kind of washing the stink of Brian Harsin off of that program. A lot of momentum in recruiting. And I think that they want to see Peyton Thorne. He was a guy they went out and targeted for a reason. I think they want to see him be their guy. I know they have a package for Robbie Ashford, but Hugh Freeze said, hey, I wasn't happy with how we rotated our quarterbacks. That's not exactly what I wanted to look like. I think you're going to see a more defined rotation. I think you're going to see these quarterbacks get respectively some more extended run time, try to get them in a rhythm, in a rhythm of what they need to do with those top targets like Jay Fair, like Javarius Robinson, like Rivaldo Fairweather. Start fast, step on Samford's neck, and then let your freshmen and your depth get some experience there, stay healthy, and then open up SEC play next week. So I think that's what you need to see out of Auburn. All right, guys, now we're moving right along, staying inside the state of Alabama and going to the Alabama Crimson Tide on the heels of a just destroying, deflating loss to Texas, because I think everybody expected that Alabama offensive line. That's all anybody was talking about. Alabama's offensive line is, man, they're so big. They're so good. And all I'm screaming from July and August, I'm like, hey, the quarterback ain't what you need to worry about. The receivers ain't what you need to worry about. It's that offensive line. I told everybody, you're going to be starting a freshman at left tackle. You got freshmen in the 2 deep. Where's the quality depth? I know you've been recruiting well, but you got to be able to develop some depth quickly, because things happen in the SEC and in major college football. And just wasn't real sold. I mean, other than Tyler Booker and J.C. Latham, there was nobody that I looked at that offensive line of Alabama was like, oh, yeah, that's one of the best offensive lines in the country. But yet everybody in the echo chamber was saying, oh, yeah, these guys are going to be great. Well, they weren't great against Texas. 5 sacks, should have been about 10 sacks. If Jalen Milroe is not the quarterback for Alabama, then guess what? They get sacked probably 10 times. I don't care if it's Tyler Buckner or not. I know he's athletic. You may see Tyler Buckner a little bit more, a little bit in this USF game. But, guys, can Alabama get some production out of their running backs? That's what they have to have, okay? Jalen Milroe has accounted for 29.4% of Alabama's overall rushing production so far, and the Alabama running backs, guys, have 50 carries for 199 yards, only 3.9 yards per carry in the 2023 season. That's not going to cut it. That's not the Alabama of old. Okay. They used to have backs that they could just rely on to close out football games. Even when they were in the, fun and gun stages here lately with Tua and with Bryce Young, they had a Najee Harris that they could say, hey, let's go close this game out. Let's win this football game. They got physically dominated by Texas. Texas made them quit on both of the lines of scrimmage this past week. And Tyler Booker can stand up in front of the media and say, we're pissed off all he wants to. It doesn't matter. Show us that you're pissed off. Come out against the USF Bulls on your recon mission for Saban to open up a Mercedes-Benz location in Tampa, because that's the only reason I guess that game would be scheduled down there. I have no idea why they're playing down there at Raymond James Stadium, but Alabama needs to come out and show us and say, hey, can these running backs, can McClellan, can Roydell Williams get it done? If not, then I know Justice Haynes will run the football. Put that man in there, him, Jam Miller, those guys, Richard Young. Somebody's got to be able to run the football and not make your quarterback do everything for you. People are bagging on Jalen Milroe. Tommy Rees needs to stop dropping him back, okay, into, straight drop back. Get the running game going so you can get play action going, get some bootlegs, get things like that. That was not Jalen Milroe's fault on Saturday night against Texas, and I want to see this Alabama offensive line help those Alabama running backs get a running game going for the Crimson Tide. That's my question for Alabama. Can they do that against USF? All right, who do we have left here? We got the Vanderbilt Commodores. Speaking of running the football, all right, Wake Forest ran the football right down Vandy's throat down there over in Winston-Salem. The Demon Deacons were just absolutely shredding Vandy on the run game wise. 288 rushing yards allowed for Vanderbilt. Guys, you just in the SEC and in major college football, you got to be able to do two things to be successful. You got to be able to run the ball and stop the run. Vandy's running the ball a little bit better. They've got a couple young running backs and Alexander and Smith that are doing some good things, but they cannot stop it. They're like a sieve up front right now. But fortunately for Vanderbilt, they are playing the equivalent of a high school team outside of Reno and UNLV there in Las Vegas. They are favored by 4.5 points on the road. That tells you what kind of competition Vegas thinks they're going to go up against. So Vandy, AJ Swan made some unbelievable throws at times, and then he made some head scratchers at times. Will Shepard, Jaden McGowan, they've got guys that they can, like I said, Smith and Alexander at running back. They've got guys that can be serviceable. Vandy can compete in games this year. Clark Lee has got them to that point. Just nut up and stop the run defensively. Sell out. Put extra guys in the box. I don't care. Don't dare them to beat you with the throw, but at least you won't be death by 1,000 cuts on the run. Can't do that by Vandy. Can't do that at all. Speaking of running the football, can Ole Miss get Quinshad Junkins, maybe the best running back, him, Rocket Sanders heading in, maybe the best running back in the country. Marshawn Lloyd's doing good things for USC. I mean, there's a couple others you could mention, but definitely one of the best in the SEC. Has not looked like it here for Ole Miss early on. Of course, he hasn't really had to with as good as Jackson Dart has been tremendous. I mean, Jackson Dart has been awesome for Ole Miss. I've really seen a lot of growth there out of him. But finding balance here for Ole Miss will be important, not only against a Georgia Tech team that is improving, okay, and is playing much better under Brent Key. Should have won that Louisville game early on in the year. But also when they go against Alabama next week, when they travel to Tuscaloosa, I believe. So they need some balance before that. Judkins has just 31 carries for 106 yards, 3.5 yards per clip, 3 TDs in the 2023 season. And then defensively for Ole Miss, can they contain Haynes King? Okay, Haynes King, yes, that Haynes King that was at Texas A&M that looked awful. The throwing motion was ungodly. Well, Buster Faulkner has worked a little bit of magic and working with him. He's playing some pretty decent football. He's athletic. He can scramble around and extend plays. He did that against Louisville at times. So can that Ole Miss defense be disciplined with their pass rush and also just him up and win this game convincingly like they should against Georgia Tech, as Ole Miss is a more talented team than Georgia Tech at this point. So that is my question for Ole Miss. We got a question here from the Ultimate Swan. My question for Vandy: will construction on their stadium finish before 2024? I don't know, man. It's crazy to see what's going on there. But hey, you just got to tip your hat to Vandy and say, hey, congratulations for kind of trying to join the arms race a little bit and trying to improve things and stuff like that. I think that itself is a step in the right direction for Vanderbilt. Nathan Klein says, would love to see Vandy become more relevant in the football scene. I think everybody would. Nashville is a great, great city. I mean, it is a booming town. There's just stuff going up everywhere there. And, the Titans' new stadium is going to be unreal. How that's going to go. That may even rival the SEC championship game in Atlanta. They may even move it, switch it there between Nashville and Atlanta when that comes around. That's how impressive this stadium is going to be. There's going to be Super Bowls played there, all this kind of stuff. Of course, we know the music scene. So Vandy being able to tap into all that, especially in the day of NIL and things like that, maybe if they could get some of those private donors, things like that, to come off the pocket and help with the sports a little bit, then maybe they could get relevant again, because cash is king now in this day. You got to have money to be able to compete. Speaking of people that have money, Texas A&M, they got that old money. They got some talented players over there on that team. And boy, my question is, why did they not spend more on the secondary? Apparently, because Miami gutted them like a fish in the passing game. I mean, poor tackling created bad chunk plays into just devastating touchdown plays where they just didn't tackle the guy in space. They could have limited some of those plays to 20, 25 yards instead of, 40, 50, 60 yard touchdowns and backbreakers. So I think you just got to tackle better in space. The front seven is talented and is doing a good job stopping the run. They maybe need to get a little bit more pass pressure, get a little better pass rush, and help that secondary out. But my goodness, I mean, you just gotta be better as a secondary, because guess what? Connor Wigman, Bobby Petrino, that's a combination that's going to work for Texas A&M over there offensively. I think Connor Wigman is a future star. He has a very, very good number one receiver in Evan Stewart, got a good supporting cast of receivers with Noah Thomas and Moose Muhammad, got a good tight end in Jake Johnson over there, Max Johnson's brother. I think that, Anai Smith, I didn't even mention him. They've got what they need on offense. They just gotta pick it up. They got to pick it up in the secondary. Nathan Klein says Hog fans have no sympathy for secondary struggles. I hear that, Nathan. That was definitely a point of contention for Arkansas last year. But I think under Travis Williams, they're going to do a little bit better. But yeah, can Texas A&M just play better complementary football? I'm not writing off Texas A&M at all. Trap Time asked, hey, can Arkansas win the West? Guess what? I think Texas A&M can win the West. I really do, because Alabama's got to go to them. They always play Alabama well. Yes, they have to go to Baton Rouge at the end of the season, but I don't think that Miami game, I think you need to take a little bit of that with a grain of salt, because DJ Durkin is probably going to get reamed out by Jimbo Fisher, probably already has. Got to get that defense right. And then, I think that offense is good enough to help them win a good many ball games over there. Let's see. Are there any more teams that we have not covered? I believe that is every one of the teams in the SEC. Oh, nope. There is one more that I'm leaving out. And I'm glad I saw the picture of Schrader behind me, because Missouri. does the Missouri offense, does the Mizzou offense become more dynamic against K-State? Got to free Brady Cook. This man had 585 rushing yards last year. When he made plays with his legs, that's when the Missouri offense started going a little bit. I don't care if it's designed runs that Kirby Moore makes up, the new offensive coordinator for Eli Drinkwitz. I don't care. But find some ways to be a little bit creative. It's too stale. Luther Burden has 16 touches in 2 games. He needs probably close to that in this game alone against K-State if you want to have a chance, okay? Luther Burden's the best player on the field by far. Dude is a bona fide star. Get him the football. Let him work. I don't care if it's in Wildcat. I don't care if it's giving him the ball in jet sweeps, taking shots down the field. Heck, use him as a decoy sometimes after you do that, after you get him the rock. I don't care if he gets tackled for a 3 or 4 yard gain. Guys, make the defense pay attention to him. And then Theo Wees, Schrader, Nathaniel Pete, all these other weapons you have, then utilize them in different ways. But get Luther Burden going early. Use Brady Cook's legs, and then put some stress on that Coach Kleinman coached K-State team, because they are disciplined. They play well on special teams, and Eli Drinkwitz and company are going to need to not only be efficient, but they're going to have to find a way to be explosive and more dynamic offensively if they're going to have a chance. So those are all of the 14 teams that we've talked about. Guys, if you have a question, you can go ahead and throw it in real quick. I'll get to those right here. But while we're waiting on any questions, did want to tell you guys, if you like what we're doing here, first, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. That's greatly appreciated. Also, leave your comments. We would love to have your comments and know what your thoughts are. Whether if you think it's good, terrible, whatever, comment. Let us know. And you can also be the MVP of Southeastern 14 and advertise with us. If you want your business, your products, your services to reach over 150,000 unique viewers a month and growing, that number will be way more here in the next couple of months. This channel is growing like crazy. We went from 10,000 to over 11,000 subscribers in like a matter of 3 weeks, and we're making our way to 12,000 right now, but over 350,000 views alone this month. Guys, we are growing and we want to work with you. So make sure that you can email caroline.smith at southeastern14.com if you want to work with us. But if you guys got any questions, I'll go ahead and answer those right here. William Wigginton says, old motorcycle and neck brace. Yeah, for sure. Over there. Ultimate Swan said, good show, Blayne. You're on fire with the segues today. I appreciate that, Ultimate Swan. Thank you very much. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll hang out here for just another minute or two and give my general thoughts on the game. But if you got any questions, go ahead and bring those on. Guys, some players I'm excited to watch this week. I'm excited to see what Mason Smith has on the front of that LSU defense. He missed the Florida State game, missed the second game against Grambling. They held him out against them. Now he's going to get his season opener, first time playing, full speed in a real live game since he tore his ACL. So excited to see what that brings to LSU's defensive front. I'm excited to see Will Rogers play against that defense. I think that's going to be one of the more intriguing games of the weekend. And by the way, I'm picking Mississippi State for the upset. Give me the cowbells, all of them at home. I really like it. I really like what Kevin Barbe has going on with that run game. And I think people are saying, Mississippi State fans are saying, oh, we run the football too much. We're not letting Will Rogers throw. Listen, it'll be good. It'll be okay. We know Will Rogers can throw the football, but if you can run it like that with Woody Marks, whoo, boy, you might have something on your hands, Mississippi State. I love the angles, the downhill run game that they have going. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see that. And I'm also excited to see Daijun Edwards for Georgia. He was Georgia's top running back last year. I'm excited to see what he does. I think he'll get anywhere between 10 and 12 carries, probably, just knowing how Daijun does things and how he's elusive and makes people miss. I think he'll probably end up between 85 and 100 yards rushing, and I think he'll be a big component that Georgia has been missing. He's just rock steady. He's a guy that comes in. Doesn't make a whole lot of noise, but he just comes in and does his job. And he is a closer. When Georgia is up late in games, they know they can turn and hand the ball to Daijun Edwards, and he is going to salt that thing away. So I think that is a big piece and something that I'm excited about right here. So Nathan Klein says, which LSU do we see this weekend? Yeah, is it going to be the one we saw later on in the season last year, with the exception of the A&M game as they made their run, or is it going to be the one that we saw last year, first FSU game, and then this year first FSU game? I'm excited to see. Nathan says, imagine the chaos with the South Carolina win. There's about a negative 0.1. I mean, microscopic. Georgia would probably have to have some players just quit before the game on Saturday morning for that to happen. I just think that Georgia's way too talented. That environment is going to be rocking. I mean, Stanford Stadium, 3:30 game. They're so excited to finally have a conference opponent come in. It's going to be bananas in there, and I just don't see South Carolina having the opportunity to do that. But I do think there's going to be chaos this weekend, whether it's Florida with an upset over Tennessee, whether it's Mississippi State with an upset over LSU, and that's the one I'm picking, by the way. I think there's going to be chaos everywhere at some point. And then when you talk about the SEC West and the SEC East, I'm going to do a little bit of a homage to the divisions going away tomorrow morning in the morning report. But excited for this year and how wide open everything is. So, guys, like I said, one more time, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. You can catch me every morning on the morning report. You can also catch Chris and Blake and Gavin Schoenwald, the former Vandy tight end, on the daily show that we have every day. I believe that's from 12 to 1 Eastern, so 11 to 12 Central. So you can catch that on there. Like I said, my morning report drops at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central. And then on Friday, we have Jake's Takes coming out with Jake Crane of Crane and Company on the Daily Wire. That's every Friday. That episode drops. And then also Brian Edwards over at Vegas Insider. For decades, he's been knowing the behind the scenes and the moving and the shaking over there with the odds and the line tips every week. So this is your place. If you want daily SEC coverage, this is it. Guys, appreciate you tuning in. Love talking SEC football and love doing it right here with you guys. Some of these live streams, we're going to just open it up and let some of you guys start popping in and getting on screen with us here. Keep it family friendly, but we'll let you do that next time when we come in. So appreciate everybody. Like I said, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will catch you next time to talk more SEC football right here on Southeastern 14.